So with this understanding and orientation, how do we go about hastening while awaiting? The means for doing this is concentrated in the formulation, fight the power and transform the people for revolution. Let's start with the aim of all this, revolution. In Basics 3.1, I put it like this. Let's get down to basics. We need a revolution. Anything else in a final analysis is bullshit. That is another simple and basic truth. We need to go to people, not just one or two people, not just a small number of people, but masses of people, reaching all over the country, in every part of society, straight up with revolution. Instead of just letting where they are at set the terms and trying to somehow bring in some idea about revolution within that limited framework. As Basics 3.1 goes on to say, we do need to unite with people in all sorts of struggles short of revolution. But it is frankly ridiculous to think that something short of revolution could solve all the monumental problems and monstrous outrages that people face under this system. On the basis of going to people straight up with revolution, then, coming from that place, we need to unite with people in fighting injustice and oppression and struggle to win more and more people to see the need and the possibility for revolution and to get with this. We need to protest and resist the injustices and atrocities of this system and win people to defy and repudiate this putrid system and its ways of thinking, and to take up the outlook and values and the strategy and program of the revolution, build up the forces for this revolution, and defeat the attempts of the ruling powers to crush the revolution and its leadership. As How We Can Win also points out, we have seen the potential for this in the protests that have taken place against police brutality and murder, and other ways in which large numbers of people have gone up against the established authorities and the political rules of the game. But How We Can Win goes on to emphasize that while such protest and resistance is important, this needs to be transformed into revolutionary understanding, determination, and organization. Transformed how? Through struggle. This goes back to the important contradiction that millions and millions of people really do care about one or more, and many care about all of those 5 stops. But in terms of understanding where all these outrages come from and what is necessary to really put a stop to them, most of the same people don't know shit and have their heads up their asses. So, while uniting with and working to bring forward still greater numbers of people in protesting and resisting the atrocities of this system, there is a need for sharp struggle to win them to confront and grasp the fact that in fundamental terms, this system is the source of all these horrors, and it cannot be reformed but must be overthrown. This is revolutionary work that must be carried out by continually growing numbers of people, organized into the ranks of the revolution and acting together in accordance with a common strategic orientation and plan. This must be done consistently, including in more normal times, whatever those are. And it is of heightened importance with every jolt in society, every crisis, every new outrage, where many people question and resist what they normally accept. We have witnessed many such jolts in recent times, including with the election of Trump-Pence and then the continuing atrocities carried out by this regime in power. It is crucial that all such jolts be seized on by the revolutionaries and others to bring forward growing numbers of people to become part of the massive, nonviolent but sustained mobilization that is needed to drive out this regime. But beyond that, revolutionaries must do all this to advance the revolution and expand its organized forces toward the fundamental goal of overthrowing this whole system. How We Can Win emphasizes that the organized forces and the leadership of this revolution must become the authority that growing numbers of people look to and follow, not the lying politicians and media of this oppressive system, not those who front for the oppressors and preach about reconciliation with this system, not those who turn people against each other when they need to be uniting for this revolution. What has already been shown about these politicians and media makes clear why sharp and compelling struggle needs to be waged to expose their actual role and win people to reject and repudiate what they represent. Earlier, I spoke to how there are the fascist and the mainstream sections of the capitalist imperialist ruling class. In a fundamental sense, capitalist imperialists, the fact that even with their very real differences, they all represent the same system of exploitation, oppression, degradation, and devastation. That is the essential thing and the essential reason why their authority must be rejected and repudiated by masses of people. As for those, posers in religious robes and others, who preach about reconciliation with this system and front for the oppressors, here is a variation on what I said in All Played Out. Reverends and the rest, not those who really stand with the oppressed, but those who strut and preach to keep the people down, on their knees, suffering indignities, who put the blame on those unfree for ways that they are kept in misery, pompous, self-righteous asses who breathe contempt for the masses, fools who worship the powers that be, insisting that things stay locked within the bounds of bargains with the bourgeoisie. People must come to see that this is all played out. It is necessary and important to unite with preachers, with everyone who can be united with in the fight against oppression and injustice. And people who are attracted to the revolution while still holding religious views should be welcomed and involved, while at the same time the struggle needs to be waged to win people to a consistently scientific approach, which leads to the understanding that there is no God and that trying to rely on a supposed God as the savior of oppressed humanity can only lead away from the real solution and ultimately leave people at the mercy of this merciless system. Many religious people say that they accept the conclusions of science, or much of this, while also insisting that science has its limits and that there is something greater than this, faith. But faith is belief in things not because they have been shown to be true, through examining what the evidence shows about reality, drawing conclusions from that, and testing those conclusions in practice in the actual material world, but because it is comforting to believe these things, or frightening not to, and because people have been conditioned to believe this by powerful religious traditions and institutions whose scriptures were written by human beings who were deeply mired in superstition and ignorance, and who, for that matter, advocated things that everyone today should recognize as depraved and barbaric, such as rape, pillage, and slaughter of innocents. In A Way with All Gods, I cited many examples of this, and people can also see this for themselves by looking without blinders at the Bible as well as the Quran. As I said in Basics 4.1, oppressed people who are unable or unwilling to confront reality as it actually is are condemned to remain enslaved and oppressed. And in contrast to that, a scientific method and approach leads to an understanding of the possibility of putting an end to slavery and oppression of every kind through revolution.